we'll go from there. So, hey, Josh, how's it going?
Hey Chris, how you doing?
All right, you're the co-founder and chief product officer. Excellent.
I am the co-founder and chief product officer. So I wanted to just kind of kick off our demo today, or rather do some kind of introduction of myself before we get into the demo. So I started the company with my co-founder Dan back in 2011. This is our 10th year. Been at it for quite some time, and both Dan and I are both super passionate about creating magical experiences for people, particularly our users who use Traitify, whether it be candidates, employees, or managers. And that really is kind of core to our DNA as a company. A few fun things to kind of mention about my background. So the company was more or less inspired by a failed blind date that I went on back in 2011. And the company originally was really focused more on how do we use personality data to recommend things to do for people for a dating context. And that over the last decade has transformed into kind of what we're doing today, which we'll obviously talk more about in a little bit. Also, in those early days, I lived in a hotel with our chief creative officer and our then CTO for about 6 months, which sounds fun, and it was fun at times, but definitely by the end of that 6 month period, I was ready to kind of find a more permanent residence. And then on a daily basis, in terms of my role as chief product officer for Traitify, really what I'm responsible for is bringing together all of our teams on the product side of the house, whether that be our psychology team, our design team, our development team, our DevOps team, and really make sure that we're building products that have a strong foundation in psychology and in science, but also prioritize that great user experience for those candidates, employees, and managers.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing the tool. I've met Elliot Larson, one of your sales
Mm,
reps, many of the shows in the past. That's how I got introduced to Traitify. And I think I have a Traitify t-shirt somewhere in my drawer.
that's awesome. That's great. We'll have to send you some of our latest and greatest swag too.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Well, feel free to get rolling here.
Sure. So again, before we jump into the demo, just want to spend a minute or so talking about who we are as Traitify. So we look at ourselves as a human insights platform that's powered by two primary assessments. Our personality assessment that is informed by the five-factor model of personality, and our cognitive assessment, which we're actually launching in a couple of weeks, which uses the general mental ability Cattell-Horn-Carroll model of intelligence. And those two assessments primarily power three product lines. Attract, which can be used top of funnel prior to a candidate applying to help them discover opportunities within an organization. Select, which is applying the assessment in the apply flow for candidates to take the assessment and their scores to be viewed by hiring managers in order to prioritize and select the best fit candidate. And then Engage, which is our post-hire solutions. So this is primarily using that personality and cognitive data to create personalized content for employees and managers to help with engagement and development of employees. Everything we do is designed with kind of that experience and the end user in mind. So we're really prioritizing creating experiences that are delightful, easy to use, intuitive, and impactful without requiring a huge time investment. We do consider ourselves the fastest in the industry in terms of not only our assessment length. Our personality assessment takes about 90 seconds. Our cognitive typically takes about 5 minutes. And then results are instantaneously available for hiring managers and managers to view. Everything we build is accessible across any device. So we have most of our usage today coming from mobile devices, but everything is designed to work across any device, regardless of screen size. And then again, as I mentioned at the front in my intro, we are prioritizing science and strong psychology in everything we build. So while our interfaces are very innovative and modern, we are making sure that everything is very, very predictive and tested so that it's reliable and valid. And we have this big green graphic here, but we also are very proud of our completion rate, and we think this is a huge differentiator for us in the market. We'll be up at 96% plus completion rate, which is not very surprising considering our assessments take 90 seconds and 5 minutes for the cognitive to complete. So I'm going to run through our Select product and primarily our Big Five assessment. And if you want to follow along for anyone watching, you can go to assessmentexpo.traitify.com and take the assessment along with me. I'm going to go and pull up my web browser. So we can be delivered through a variety of ways. Primarily, most of our customers are using us via an applicant tracking system integration, and we do integrate into most of the major applicant tracking systems. So what you're going to see today is very representative of the experience that a candidate would see as they're going through one of our assessments. So the first thing a candidate would see is a very brief set of instructions, just asking them to go with their gut and answer me or not me to these images. So you'll see here, this is our assessment format. It's primarily visual. We do have a caption to help kind of hone the intent of the image. And this is our proprietary method. So we have developed this in-house with our team of psychologists. We go through a very, very rigorous testing process to ensure that we have convergent validity with long-standing Big Five models or assessments. We then do retest reliability to make sure that the results are consistent. And then of course, we're looking at criterion validity with all of our customers to make sure that we are in fact predicting outcomes using our assessment. So again, this assessment is based on the 5-factor model, measuring openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and emotional stability. This model is by far considered the most predictive model by all psychologists. Has been around for over 70 years at this point, many years of research backing this. And what we've done is taken kind of a more modern, novel approach by taking these psychological concepts and developing a way in which we're able to measure these based on the response to these image caption pairs. And again, it takes only 90 seconds for a candidate to complete the assessment. Once the candidate has completed the assessment, we will send scores back into the applicant tracking system. But what I want to show you here is actually our candidate report. So this is something that our team developed last year as a response to the increased interest we were seeing in providing a give back to candidates. So our team has, from the ground up, designed an output that organizations can share with the candidate to create this reciprocity. So the report begins with an overview of the candidate's personality type. There are 32 possible types that the candidate can be bucketed into. We also have a video, very, very quick 1-minute video for each of the types. So a candidate can watch that and learn about their strengths, areas where they might have gaps or weaknesses and how to improve upon those, and also environments that are ideal for them. We also reiterate that information down here in this section where we're overviewing tools to use, room for growth and change, and settings that work for you. And finally, we're getting into a breakdown of the personality dimension. So as I mentioned, this framework is measuring 5 dimensions of personality. We would show the candidate where they rank from high, medium, or low on each of those. And then based on those, we're showing what the benefits are for being in that particular level on that dimension. Something to note here is all of this is configurable. Everything we build has maximum configurability in mind. So organizations can kind of pick or choose what they want to show in this report based on what they're comfortable sharing with the candidate. And then in terms of what we show to a hiring manager, so again, we are passing scores back into the applicant tracking system. Those scores are based on the ideal candidate profile that we set up for the organization. So based on what roles the assessment is to be used for, we do a job analysis. So looking at the description of the role, administering the assessment to incumbents in the role, doing manager interviews, and then also relying on the meta analytic research for the Big Five in terms of what personality traits and dimensions are predictive of success in that role. We now have a library of about 300 or so ideal candidate profiles, and we also use those to help build these profiles for organizations. So in addition to that score that we send over into the ATS, we would also send a URL. And once the hiring manager clicks on that URL, they would be able to see a full report and breakdown for the candidate. So again, you're seeing up here at the top, a numerical score and a text description based on how they scored relative to the ideal candidate profile. And then below that, we get into a fit breakdown. So as you can see here, we have the 5 dimensions of personality, and then there are 10 possible score levels that the candidate can achieve in each of these. So the hiring manager is very quickly able to see, did the candidate fall into the acceptable range of scoring for this dimension? Were they in the preferred, or were they in the potential risk? And also kind of very quickly and visually see where that dimension corresponds to in terms of work, functional work areas. So for instance here, openness corresponds to solving problems. We then present customized interview questions. So based on the candidate scores, we prioritize any areas, any of the functional work areas that are presenting as any potential risk area, and provide the hiring manager with 3 possible questions to ask that candidate, along with what they are trying to find out from the question and what to kind of expect in the responses. So again, 3 questions for each of the 5 areas, and those areas are sorted based on how the candidate scored across the 5 dimensions. So jumping back to the deck, and kind of as a summary here, so in general, how we see ourselves stacking up against other assessments in the space. Many other more traditional assessments take upwards of 25 minutes to complete, which can be a non-starter, particularly in a high volume hourly apply flow where candidates don't have much time. We only take 2 minutes to complete the assessment. Most assessments traditionally are heavily text-based. We have really tried to limit the amount of text and only have those captions that accompany our visuals. We work across all devices, as I mentioned. So we've made sure as we're building a lot of products that they're responsive and they look great across any device. Validation is also an interesting differentiator here. So many of our competitors in the space kind of set up an initial profile for a role and take a set it and forget it approach. We are actually looking at your data, your organizational data, your hiring, your termination data, your performance data on a quarterly basis. And we are tweaking those ideal candidate profiles as needed. So it's an ever evolving dynamic process to make sure that the profile is as sharp as it can be based on the current data. As I mentioned, we have a 96% completion rate, which has really allowed us to be utilized by many organizations who previously had seen fairly high drop-off and had turned away from assessments. Now they're able to leverage this power of the assessment through our very quick formats. Time to hire is another metric that we're often looking at, and whereas some of the more traditional assessments can in fact increase time to hire, we've seen across all of our customers that we're reducing it on average by 5 days, which is very, very impactful to an organization. And then finally, we've created these assessments both from the science perspective and the user experience perspective so that they can be utilized by anyone, regardless of what role they're applying for. So gone are the days where assessments can only be used for kind of management and executive hires. Now it can be opened up to any type of role, regardless of the complexity.
Okay.
And then finally, impact, of course, is kind of the bottom line here. And this is where we get into that criterion validation. Are we actually predicting, is using our assessment predicting positive outcomes for organizations we work with? So it is, in fact, really delivering on a multitude of metrics here. So on the business side, we've seen customers who are using Traitify have up to a 35% increase in work performance for employees who were selected using our assessments, and even a 6% increase in revenue for locations that are using Traitify to select candidates. And then in terms of the HR function, again, we're seeing a strong reduction in time to hire, up to 50%. Up to a 38% decrease in overall turnover, which of course equates to in some cases, millions of dollars of savings per year. And within that 38%, up to 54% in involuntary turnover, which is pretty staggering. And then these at the bottom are just kind of a collection of some of the customers we work with. We primarily are focused on kind of the high volume hourly space, considering our assessment is a really good fit for a very quick apply flow, but can serve any customer regardless of their type.
Okay, time's up, Josh.
Great.
Perfect. So I got a couple questions for you. So with your different clients, are they using it in different sort of pieces of the funnel? Is it pretty much just a pre-screening tool? Are they using it to shortlist candidates? Tell me more about how that fits in there.
Yeah, so our select tool that I just ran through is primarily being used in the apply flow as a pre-hire assessment, but we do have those other 2 products, Attract, which is top of funnel, often embedded directly on a career site to help candidates discover opportunities that fit them and then apply for those, and then Engage, which is kind of using that data to deliver personalized content to employees and managers to help retention once the hire has been made.
For your high volume clients, are they using that the assessment to is that kind of the primary way they will weed out a candidate?
Yeah, it's primarily being used to quickly kind of prioritize candidates, particularly with these high volume hourly employers. As I'm sure you know, they're seeing kind of staggering volume of candidates and need a way to quickly kind of sort and prioritize those that they're going to advance to the next step. So it is, I would say, a first line of defense to get down to that interview stage where ultimately a manager can have a face-to-face with a candidate.
And last question, just tell us about your pricing briefly, if you could.
Yeah, so it really depends on number of hires. So that's currently how we're pricing, is looking at kind of total anticipated annual hires. We don't want to charge by assessment because we never want to disincentivize an organization from using our assessments. So that's kind of how we're reaching our pricing.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time today, Josh. Great finally being able to see Traitify in action.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
You got you and the team there.
Great, thank you.
All right, take care.